Ignorance about pit bull type dogs is rampant. It always has been. I'm not sure it'll ever be fully eradicated, but I have to try because that's what I do. Please know that making this video does not bring me any joy whatsoever. I used to be a very big fan of Joe Rogan. I love his stand-up comedy, news radio, Fear Factor, and I really liked his podcast up until I found out about his opinions about pit bull type dogs. When people have a platform and people are listening and paying attention, it means that they have power because they have influence. When you have an irresponsible rhetoric fueled with emotional intoxication, as we get in this clip I'm about to dismantle, it's never good. Dogs are innocent, and if there's a problem with them, it's clearly the humans in their care that need to be focused on to reduce and resolve the problems. Hopefully Mr. Rogan will watch this and recalibrate his opinions and use a little bit more common sense, logic, math, science, and empathy. Because I know he loves dogs, he's just confused. Joe, if you're listening, please get a hold of me. I'd love to have a conversation with you. Now let's get into it. Let me add some context. What you're about to see is the beginning of a conversation about PETA.
Oh, pit bulls should be eradicated.
Yeah.
And, and like things like that. And the idea
pit bulls
of...
they are dangerous. I've had them. They just are.
So what Mr. Rogan is saying is that the dogs he has had were dangerous according to him. And that's based on his limited knowledge, his limited experience, and his perspective on behavior. This is his opinion, not fact.
They've thousands of years of breeding to fight each other. And if you're an irresponsible dog owner, pit bulls can be fucking dangerous.
There's two things he's talking about here. One, genetics and breeding, which he knows nothing about, and we'll find out more about this later. Two, he's talking about being a responsible dog guardian. Well, I have news for Mr. Rogan. Any dog that is substantial, medium, large, strong, in the hands of irresponsible humans could be a problem or dangerous. Any dog. So this is about humans, not breeds of dog.
Yeah, but at the same time, they say that about my dog, about my Staffy.
Yeah, but Staffordshire Terriers, that's ignorance. They're not the same breed.
Wow, talk about ignorance, Joe. They are the same breed. And so you don't think this is my opinion? Let's bring in an actual historian of pit bull type dogs to give us the definitions of what a pit bull dog is.
There is a breed pit bull. It's the American Pit Bull Terrier. Many people include the American Staffordshire Terrier and the Staffordshire Bull Terrier, and that's certainly an acceptable thing to do. But overall, they're more similar than dissimilar.
See, there's a genetic
According
line.
to law, they are.
Yeah, but it's not right.
Yeah.
The law is incorrect. There's just some stuff written down on paper. When you deal with the actual genetic lines of the dog, I've had dogs that their line was from fighting dogs, and they were impossible. You couldn't take them to the dog park, couldn't take them. It didn't matter how much I trained them, didn't matter how much I was with them all the time. When dogs would bow up around him, he would get aggressive and he'd want to fight.
Okay, we're going to address the genetic stuff a little bit later. As far as stuff on paper in regards to laws, yeah, well, I got news for Mr. Rogan. There's a lot of breeders out here that are putting stuff on papers as well. As far as you had dogs from fight lines, so you intentionally bought dogs from breeders who were breeding dogs to fight dogs, so you were contributing and colluding with dog fighting culture. Good to know. If you have a dog with known issues that has fear and aggression with other dogs, and you've taken them to the dog park and there's been problems and you keep going back, that's your fault. That isn't the dog's fault. The dog didn't choose to go there. So you should have been smart enough to know, hey, I got a dog and he's got these genetics that I'm concerned about and he has these behaviors I'm concerned about. So you take him to a different environment. You don't keep putting the dog into a compromising environment. That's the human's fault. You can't blame the dog for your choices. That doesn't make any sense. As far as being on top of training, well, I'm not sure you're aware of this, Mr. Rogan, but dog training is an incredibly fractured industry and culture, and there's a lot of bad information out there disguised as, quote, training, end quote. Bowed up around your dogs, not sure what that means. In my 20 years of working with dogs, I've never heard that term. If you mean that other dogs made threats or had some sort of fearful behavior exhibited and your dog defended themselves, well, again, the environment is a dog park, So it is kind of like Lord of the Flies.
Well,
And-
I agree with you on a lot of things, but this is one where I have a completely different line, because like I have a dog who is Chihuahua Basset Hound, and I can't bring her near other dogs.
But that's an exception to the rule. Pit bulls are kind of the rule.
Okay, so first of all, this effete, ineffectual person who is sitting across from Mr. Rogan has zero idea on how to defend dogs or knows nothing about behavior. I'm sure his heart's in the right place. From what I understand, he rescues dogs, and that's great. I'm not sure what you mean here by pit bulls are the rule. What does that supposedly mean? That's the most nebulous term and description I've ever heard about dog behavior. You mean their behavior is the one behavior that represents all other dogs, and every other dog has to have the same behavior as a sound pit bull or an unsound pit bull? Like, what are you talking about, Joe? You're making no sense. Lastly, if your dog has issues with dogs and they are afraid of other dogs, that means they are fearful. Dogs do not have a moral imperative to be jealous, stubborn, spiteful, or little brats. If they're afraid, it's because they're fearful, and that's part of their history.
The problem with pit bulls is it's a very dangerous dog. They're super powerful. They're really aggressive.
Wow, the ignorance just keeps on falling out of Mr. Rogan's mouth. Yes, there are a lot of dogs who are big and strong and powerful, and in the wrong hands and given the wrong socialization and the wrong type of pain training, they could be a problem too. It comes back to the people. You notice how Mr. Rogan talks about dogs like they're toaster ovens or automobiles. They're not.
And they don't respond to pain the way a lot of other dogs do, because it's been bred out of them. Like if you follow the way they breed dogs for fighting, when dogs fight, if they back away, if they cower, they were killed. That was the whole Michael Vick thing.
Yeah.
Is that they had killed all these dogs that quit in fights.
Okay, first of all, you can't breed nerve endings out of a dog. And you can't breed a dog to not have an amygdala, which is the area of the brain that deals with fear and stress. All dogs can feel pain. What Mr. Rogan is referring to are the rare dogs who have so much adrenaline in that dog fight that the adrenaline masks the pain. A lot of dogs, when they are amped up and have maximum amounts of adrenaline and they're in a dangerous situation, will not feel pain. He should understand this because he's an MMA fighter and he can feel pain, but he feels a lot less pain when he's all amped up and fighting.
So when you have all of that reinforcement genetically, and you're dealing with a breed that's been raised like this for hundreds and hundreds of generations, you're dealing with an incredibly aggressive dog with a really high kill drive. And when these dogs with high prey drives are given to irresponsible people, that's when you're getting all babies getting killed, little kids getting killed, dogs getting killed. I mean, it is breed specific.
Okay, as you can tell, there's a lot of emotional intoxication going on here. Let's parse this out. First of all, there is no such thing as a kill drive. That's ridiculous. That's just rhetoric. And prey drive is not the same as a dog who is aggressing because they're afraid. A long time ago, the ethologists figured this out. They had it wrong for years, and they thought aggression and prey acquisition were equally the same. They're not. There's two different functions for them. Now he says raised. Are you talking about dogs who are bred or dogs who are raised? Because those are two different paradigms. Aggression is rooted in fear, so dogs who are aggressive have fear. He says dogs with, or do you mean pit bulls with? Which one, Joe? Because you keep splitting the two and you talk about pit bulls like they're not dogs. Lastly, when children and babies are killed by dogs or mauled by them, that is directly related to the people that have them, the adults, not doing the proper socializing, not recognizing behavior issues, and being irresponsible and leaving dogs and small children unattended. That is not breed specific.
I think it's very important that people realize that the reason Vick was killing dogs in such horrible methods is because they didn't want to fight. They didn't want to be there. Not all pit bulls are terribly dog aggressive, and there are more dogs in a game-bred litter that don't want to fight than there are that do.
But pit bulls were bred for fighting. I mean, that's what they were bred for. That's why they looked that way.
And the American Pit Bull Terrier is a dog which has come pretty much in a straight line from the gripping dogs of the medieval and actually even before that.
Actually, Joe, they were bred to be gripping dogs, to be used for farm work, hunting, and general activities that people needed dogs for. The fighting came later.
I think the problem is that if a dog looks like a pit bull, because pit bull actually isn't even a breed. It's
Right.
what is it? American something terrier is the actual breed that people are talking about.
Well, it was an American Bulldog mixed with a Terrier.
Yeah.
Terriers are more aggressive.
And then they made the new breed.
Yeah. And then, but if you get a bloodline from one that is a fighting dog.
And yeah, this is a problem. Dogs that look like pit bull dogs that are not. Also, if there's an American Bulldog in some dog's line, it is not a pit bull terrier or a Staffordshire Bull Terrier or a Staffy Terrier. It's not. And a terrier dog is not inherently aggressive because aggression is rooted in fear. It is not some sort of component that just comes along with a dog. Do you see how they talk about dogs like they're some sort of car off of an assembly line? And there's no care or concern for the individuality of dogs here in this conversation.
And this is not someone. I love pit bulls. I have friends that have pit bulls. I love them. They're the sweetest, most friendly dog. But
If handled correctly.
they still have a problem being aggressive with other dogs. A lot of them do.
Aggression is rooted in fear. And if a dog has aggression towards other dogs, it means that they have had some sort of socialization or training that did not help them with that fear. It also might speak to the fact that the people keep putting them into situations that are causing the dogs to fight. Secondly, this is Mr. Rogan's perspective and his experience. It is not a fact. This is an opinion that you are listening to by Mr. Rogan. You also hear how they talk about dogs like they're cars coming off of an assembly line with a problem.
Yeah.
And they're really powerful dogs, and in the hands of the wrong people. We're not talking about labs, okay?
Yeah.
When you have a labs are like universally loving and nice. You can get the exception to the rule, you get a bad lab, but overall, Labrador retrievers are really friendly, easygoing dogs. So when someone has a lab, you go, oh, he's got a lab. When someone has a pit bull, there's a fucking reason why people go, oh, great, he's got a pit bull.
Yeah.
Because a lot of them are fucking crazy. A lot.
Okay, so you can tell that Mr. Rogan doesn't have any real, tangible, legitimate experience with dog behavior because in my 20 years working with dogs, I've met plenty of labs who have fear and aggression issues directed at other dogs or at humans because behavior is in the environment and it's a relation to their history of reinforcement or lack of reinforcement. That's what a dog's behavior is. It is related to their history. The genetics are only part of it and they are a crapshoot. Mr. Rogan's friends who have dogs that he's concerned about, well, those friends or those people that he knew with those dogs, they were the ones who had the issues. They weren't getting the proper information to help that dog. Again, dogs are not machines. They are sentient beings and they are individuals. Again, breeds of dog are not like makes of car. They don't just jump off an assembly line and if there's a problem, they can just put a new part in. Behavior is not in the dog. It's in the environment.
Well, I think it boils down to who is handling the dog and the idea of I hate when someone is like, I'm thinking of getting a pit bull. It's like, well, either you need to know everything about it and you get one, or you don't.
Really? Well, you can't know everything about everything before you do it. That's impossible. And you should know, young man, that in the world of rescue and adoptions, if the people have a semblance of common sense, a decent income, and an okay home for the dog, those rescues and shelters will hand that dog off to those people because they are in a hurry to get one more dog out of their shelter or rescue, period. Now, I'm not saying that all rescues are like this or all shelters, but yes, there is a pressure to get the dog into a home and out of the shelter, and making decisions under pressure is never good.
Well, you have to have a yard that can contain that dog for sure.
Yeah.
You have to be on top of it when it comes to training it. You have to really be aware. You have to read books on it. You should probably seek help with a professional, a behavioral specialist with dogs. But even then, if some dog threatens your dog or growls around your dog, it's likely that your dog's going to clamp a hold of its neck, and that dog's going to get fucked up.
With the myriad types of dogs that are in shelters right now because they were given up because the people who had them didn't understand them, didn't do their homework, and hired a messed up trainer, Mr. Rogan obviously has no experience actually educating and helping people with dogs. You'd think that everybody who got a dog would be prepared to get the type of dog, or just in general what life is going to be like with a dog before they got the dog. But that's not how it works, and we all know that's not how it works. So there's a whole lot of extra special restrictions being placed on a type of dog by these two gentlemen when they don't know anything about behavior. They've never counseled or trained any other humans in how to train and care for dogs, but yet they're over here spitting knowledge like they know something when really they don't know all that much.
The PETA killing thing is that always fucks with me.
What Mr. Rogan is referring to is PETA killing dogs that they're rescuing. What he does not realize is his rhetoric is supporting the anti-pit bull movement. What he doesn't realize is that his opinions being voiced on this platform, which millions of people listen to, are contributing to the ignorance of dogs and going to get dogs blamed and killed if they believe what he's saying, or they already align with these beliefs. They will be supported by somebody who has an opinion that is famous. This is the danger here. Speaking about dogs when you don't really know what you're talking about.
It's amazing to me that people will justify it also. There's video of them going to a porch and like leading someone's dog off their porch and taking it and killing it within a couple hours.
Yeah, and why do they do that?
They do it because PETA, like a lot of people, holds an opinion that some dogs are different than other dogs. And aside from their beliefs on pet ownership, PETA does have an anti-pit bull stance. And rhetoric like yours does not help. It supports it. So please, Joe, watch what you say about dogs. Make sure it's accurate and legitimate and helps dogs, not hurts them.
So bizarre. Just that kind of radical thinking. But that's just the case with everything, right? I mean, you have your reasonable people, and then you have your people that take that to the utmost and take it to the furthest point of rational thinking, to the point where you're like, you're killing all the dogs you capture?
Well, I have news for you, Mr. Rogan. You have some pretty radical thinking yourself. Listening to this conversation you had, it sounds like you're all over the place like bird shit, and I'm not being sarcastic or making fun of you. I'm serious. You didn't make any sense. You were all over the place. Hopefully now that I've broken this down and you can look at it with a little bit more perspective and some objectivity, you'll realize that all dogs are individuals. There is no such thing as this type of dog is this. It's a maybe. Genetics are a crapshoot. That's fact. All dogs, any breed, any size, any strength, any temperament, all dogs are the byproduct of human choices. And once humans realize that they are the smarter animal and they need to become properly educated with humane, empathetic training and care practices, then we'll start to have better perspectives on dogs. We'll have less euthanasia and less dog problems in our society because we'll be focusing on humans.